I think often as a disabled person, you can feel like an outcast from society. So you're aware very often, just as you're walking around, the way I walk is unusual. People quickly pick up on me being different. And so if I'm walking around a supermarket, if mothers and children see me, they'll sometimes run to another aisle. I don't think they do that deliberately because they're scared, but they're worried that their child might say something inappropriate. So it often makes you feel like an outcast. It makes you feel not part of society.
And where do you think that comes from?
I think actually it comes if you go all the way back to the Old Testament in Leviticus. There are various passages that talk about if you've got a crippled foot or a withered hand, then you're not allowed into the inner part of the temple because you're not perfect. And I think that attitude still prevails to a certain extent today.
Okay. And what are some of the challenges you faced with your disability?
So let me just go back a bit in my life. I'm an identical twin. And when I was born, I was unidentified twin. They hadn't discovered that I was there. So effectively, my brother came out. Eventually, I came out. And they thought that I wasn't going to survive. So actually, on the first day of life, I was christened. Um, and then at 18 months, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, diplegia. I was told I would never be able to walk. That obviously was going to have a massive impact on my life. It is painful for me to stand, to do simple tasks, just like getting your shoes and socks on in the morning is a challenge. How many steps are there to the tube station? Are there stairs? Are there handrails? I always have to be planning my way ahead. Um, and then there's people's perceptions, and sometimes they're unkind comments that you have to deal with.
That was a great change of thinking.
So I guess you can split my life into two halves. So there's the first 30 years where I just saw my disability as a problem. And I think that's easy to do. You're seeing doctors and nurses, and they are seeing your disability as a problem to be solved. Then you're going out in the street, and people are noticing that you're different because they see a difference. They joke and they laugh and they say unkind things. It actually has a real impact on your self confidence and your belief in who you are. What it did do, though, is at the age of 5, I was sitting in a big room of doctors, nurses, educational psychologists, my mum and dad, and the professionals were telling my mum and dad that I would never walk. On that day, I remember hearing a voice. It was almost an audible voice saying, if you stick with me, you will walk. Now, I knew that that was a voice of God. I didn't sort of even question it. And he kept his promise as well. So, through some operations that I had when I was 7, I was able then to walk unaided. Over time, he has changed my relationship with my disability. Um, so I got to the age of about 28. I wasn't a Christian. Then I was sitting in a pub one day having a drink with some friends. And one of the friends started talking about faith and religion, and he was telling me that I needed to know Jesus. He suggested I went on an Alpha course, which was a meaning of life course run by Christians. And I agreed to go, and I gave him my number, and he said he'd be in touch. I sort of went along to that course, um, wanting to prove the Christians wrong. But after 12 weeks of going back and asking lots of questions, I thought there is something in what they're saying. So on the last night, it was a snowy night, and I'd finished the course. I got in my car and I said, God, if you are there, you better show me. And all I can tell you, I almost heard an audible voice saying, Andy, I love you. So it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. And at that point, I burst into tears like a baby. I had snot, tears flooding over me as God poured his love into me for the first time. And he has then taken the next 20 years to change my perception of my disability. So now I don't see my disabilities as problems. I see them as superpowers. So if you think about it, if every day you're struggling to get down steps, or you're struggling all the time to work out the best way to get around, you become a natural born problem solver. Um, let me tell you, the world at the moment needs natural born problem solvers. So actually, my disability has created an ability. It's helped me grow into being an outgoing person. And then I guess finally, dealing with pain on a daily basis. If every step you take is a painful thing, you learn perseverance. And actually, it reminds me of the passage in Romans where it says, we also rejoice in our sufferings because we know suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us because God has poured out his love into our hearts through the Holy Spirit whom he has given us. So I would say that sums up my life. Of course, there are still challenges today. For example, there's plenty of places I go where just a simple change of policy or area would help a great deal. Take disabled toilets in pubs. They're often accessible and they're often on the first floor where there are no stairs or anything, but often you'll get to them and they'll be locked. This is a problem if you're disabled. Equally, even now, they build new homes and they have accessible front entrances because that's the law. But then there will be things like steps down into gardens or a step to get into a front door. And at one step without a handrail is a problem. So I don't want to diminish that there are still many challenges that we need to overcome. So because of my life lessons, I've learned that I've grown more through my mistakes and vulnerabilities in life. Thank you. Comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Remember, vulnerability is the bridge to better relationships. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.